So thank you everyone for joining the first day of our foster and adoptive parent recruitment and retention training series. Today's training is going to be primarily focused on recruitment. My name is Jessica Sweet. I work in central office and I oversee caregiver recruitment, support and development unit. On my unit is Monica Jackson, and she's going to be doing the bulk of the training today. So I'll have her introduce herself in just a minute. Before we really get started though, we just wanted to go through a few training guidelines. If you could please make sure you mute your microphones during the training so we're not getting a bunch of background noise, and it looks like pretty much everyone's already done that, so thank you. There will be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. If you have a question that you want to throw in the chat because you don't want to forget it or something like that, please feel free to type that in the chat and we will try to answer them at the end of the training. There aren't any formal breaks planned in this 2-hour training, but if you need to take a quick break, please feel free to get up and take your break and come back. If you do take a break, please.
Hang on, I'm trying to do something here.
Okay, Kara, if you could put your microphone on mute, thank you. If you do need to take a break and you have your camera on, if you could just turn it off so that way we're not seen, like walking around the house or anything like that, because that can be distracting to others. And if you could please try to eliminate multitasking during the training. We know that's difficult sometimes when we're all working from home and we're doing these trainings online, but it is important information. So we're hoping that you guys are all able to focus on the training today and maximize the benefit.
All right, thank you, Jessica. One last thing, just because of the issues that we've had with people joining, if you could also enter your name and your agency name in the chat box, that way we can make sure that we can issue the certificates to you for completing the course. All right, let's go ahead and get into the training. I just ended up with a coughing spell, so I'm hoping that doesn't take when I get started here. So as Jessica said, I guess I didn't introduce myself. Monica, I am the Adoptive and Foster Parent Recruitment and Retention Coordinator for the state of Michigan. My role is to provide training, but also technical assistance for recruitment and retention efforts, including planning for our annual adoptive and foster parent recruitment and retention period. And I guess that's pretty much it. So as we start today, let's review our values for recruitment and retention. On the screen, you can see the values of Michigan's child welfare system. First of all, we value the family system. That's foundational in child welfare, recruitment, and retention. The benefits of being a part of a family, including permanence, identity, and belonging. These are all the reasons why we work so hard to preserve, restore, and provide families for children. The other 4 values, caregivers, customer service, support, and data, are all listed separately, but all are necessary and dependent on the others to make our recruitment and retention efforts successful. Family foster care and adoption is not possible without caregivers. So we value the unrelated and kinship caregivers who step up to provide care in a home for children. Finding these caregivers is only step 1 in the recruitment process, and it's only step 1 for retention as well. The customer service that we provide from our very first contact with families, that's what determines whether they're going to continue to listen to what we have to say about children who need them. And our support through our responsiveness, through engagement, training, and development helps to determine how long they will continue to work with us. And then finally, the data that we gather and interpret lets us know how well we're doing and what we might need to change in our recruitment and retention practices. So we know that recruitment is about building a high quality team of foster parents who can meet the needs of children who enter or remain in care. I want you to think about this within the context of what it means to build. When you see new homes and facilities go up in your neighborhoods and communities, it doesn't happen overnight. Building is a process that takes time. And that's the same with recruitment of foster parents. Recruitment is not just a single event or activity where we set up a table and hand out flyers. It's something that takes time and consistent effort, and it includes how we communicate With prospective caregivers, it includes the type of information we provide and the ways that we support prospective caregivers who are interested in becoming foster parents. A land survey or an assessment often has to be performed to know what your boundaries are on your property and how you will assess the property. Likewise, with recruitment, it's helpful to understand your agency and your county's needs. Then the plan that you'll develop to meet those needs becomes your blueprint. And finally, in the building process, a strong foundation and appropriate support structures are needed to keep the building standing. For recruitment, that often includes our communication and resources offered during the licensing process. Recruitment doesn't it doesn't end when a family signs an application. We know this from the number of families that start the licensing process and then discontinue it. Currently, there's more than 1,000 families who are enrolled to become licensed. Close to 700 of them have been enrolled for more than 6 months, and nearly 400 have been enrolled for more than a year. So we have to continue to recruit families through engagement and support until their licenses are issued. All right, so there are several reasons why recruitment.
I'm sorry.
There are several reasons why recruitment should be an ongoing effort. We know that families are going to close their licenses at some point. So best practice is to continue to recruit homes to maintain the team of available foster homes that we have. Currently, we are closing almost twice the number of foster homes that we're opening this fiscal year. And based on this trend, Michigan doesn't have enough foster homes. In addition to the number of foster homes available, we have to take into account foster parents' comfort and their skill level to meet the needs of children in care. So best practice for placements will be to look for a good fit for children in homes that can best meet their needs, not just an available home. So when we continue to recruit and license an adequate array of foster homes, children and families experience better overall adjustment. There's fewer placement disruptions and fewer changes in placement. We help to reduce risk of additional trauma to the child and fewer interruptions to healthy attachment relationships. And higher rates of satisfied foster parents that we can retain on our teams. That's the benefits of continuing to recruit. So let's talk about some of the different types of recruitment that there are. Meeting the needs of children in foster care requires 3 different types of recruitment. When we look at the, all of the children in care, some of them require different means of recruitment. So child-specific recruitment of an individualized plan and custom material for a specific child or sibling group. We tend to see this type of recruitment for children that we have a harder time finding families for. We see this approach most in the efforts of the Michigan Adoption Resource Exchange, or MARE, for children who are available for adoption also. These efforts include meet and greet events to connect children with families who are interested in adoption, the Heart Gallery photo display of children who are available for adoption, and also MARE prayer cards that request prayers to find families for specific children. These cards feature either a child or a sibling group and information about the child or those children on the card. And this is a really great resource to provide to churches or other faith-based organizations. Please remember that you can always contact MARE to request these prayer cards for targeted recruitment activities, events within the faith community, and you can also request the Heart Gallery display for general or targeted recruitment events and activities. So general recruitment, that's what most of us are used to doing. The goal with general recruitment is just to spread awareness about the need for foster parents to really anyone who's going to pay attention at any location where there's visibility. Today, though, we're going to spend most of our time discussing targeted recruitment, as this is the best type of way to attract candidates who are going to successfully complete the process of certification, especially for children who are most in need of families. Research suggests that agencies devote only about 15% of their time, their budget, and their resources to general recruitment. So what that means is that to achieve the expected results from recruitment, 5 out of every 6 of our recruitment activities and events should be targeted. I might ask that as a quiz question later, so just remember 5 out of 6. 5 out of 6 events should be target events, not general recruitment events. All right, so target recruitment strategies tend to generate fewer inquiries than general recruitment does, but it should yield a much higher rate of parents who do successfully complete the process of certification and are able to care for children with the greatest need for families. Factors to focus on should include the children's age, their gender, race, religion, special needs, et cetera, as well as any special interests and skills and backgrounds of adults that match the needs of children in foster care within your community. So the types of events and activities that are held, the strategies that are used to attract families and the information and material shared should look very different from one event to the next and from one community to the next. When you're talking about targeted recruitment, you're not going to just be able to grab the flyers that you might see with Raise Hope Foster Dreams and expect that that is going to recruit homes for children your agency may be having a difficult time placing. It really is going to take more tailor-made focus, documents, and messages to recruit families. This approach of really kind of tailoring those materials, it does require more planning than general recruitment, but it is a much more effective way to find families for target populations of children. All right, so I want you all to enter into the chat how many times in the last 6 months your agency has had a line of adults waiting outside the building, anxious to sign up to become a foster parent. All right, I don't see the chat. Jessica, you're seeing it. Do we have a bunch of high numbers coming in right now? My guess is no, but I want you
lots of, Monica, lots of ha or 0 or LOL no.
All right, that's kind of what I thought. But now I do want you to enter into the chat the number of times in the last 6 months that you've been aware of an extremely challenging situation a foster parent has faced with very few options for resolving it. Now, what we know is that the latter situation happens all the time. And I don't think we ever really have to be concerned about controlling crowds of people wanting to foster. But due to the nature of foster care, including the initial requirements of becoming a foster parent, the challenges that foster parents face while parenting children, and also while working with our agencies, and the ongoing sacrifices that they make to foster, we have to work hard to attract potential caregivers and to continue working hard to keep them. So this is where customer service comes into play. We really can't discuss recruitment without talking about customer service. Traditionally, when we think about customer service, we think about how we're treated when we go to a place of business or interact with an organization providing a service. We know that customer service involves a direct correlation between the quality of an organization or business service delivery and its ability to generate income and revenue. For foster home recruitment, customer service focuses much more on relationships than transactions. But many of the basic principles remain the same in both business and foster home recruitment, including respect, responsiveness, and demeanor. It's believed that a single customer service experience can change the entire perception that a customer holds toward an organization. And while customer service begins with the first interaction, it sets the stage for relationship families have with the agency. And it's a process of continuous improvement throughout licensing and also throughout the duration of the family's license. It's not uncommon for issues to arise while recruiting new foster and adoptive families from the worker perspective, and that might include managing high caseloads, frustrations working through the licensing, through licensing barriers with families. We might sometimes have a bad day in court. Many things could come up, but while balancing these, And other daily tasks, we remember, we need to make sure that we do remember the ways that we interact with families are going to affect their customer service experience. And ultimately, it may affect their decision to move forward or to stop working with our agencies. So let's take a look at a video that offers tips on avoiding customer service mistakes. These tips can be applied while recruiting and engaging new families.
Customer service work can be a tough. Customer service work can be a tough job, whether we're supporting computer users or retail customers. Here are 5 common mistakes guaranteed to ruin customer service experiences and kill good customer service. Number 1, we seem like we don't care. Support situations can fail when we don't sound or act as if we care, are concerned, or appreciate the customer's or end user's situation. Now, maybe we actually do care, but in order to convey our caring, we've got to choose compassionate and empathetic words and phrases that show we care. No one can read another's mind. Try saying things like, "I know this is very frustrating," or "I'm sure I would feel the same if I were you." "I'm so very sorry," or "If there was anything at all I could do, believe me, I would." And make sure you use your own words. Try an honest expression of sympathy, saying something like, "I'm so sorry that happened to you." It's amazing how much of a calming effect that can have. Number 2, we don't listen. Too often we try to jump in with solutions and we don't allow our end users and customers to finish describing their problems or venting their feelings. We need to show the customer or end user that we're listening by what we say and how we say it. Understand that obnoxious users and customers are often embarrassed because they made a mistake and want to blame it on someone, perhaps us. Showing that we're interested in what they have to say often helps us establish rapport with the customer. Active listening techniques, including asking to make sure we understand what they have said, can go a long way toward fostering a good situation. By saying, "Let me make sure I understand what you said," we are reaching out to our customer, showing that we care, and showing that we actually are listening. Number 3, we let the user upset us. It's easy to allow the customer's or user's attitude to irritate or annoy us. Our customers pick up on this through our tone of voice and use of language, or our silence, and this can fan the fire. We can make it a personal challenge to see how many upset users and customers we can turn around. Now, don't take upset users and customers ranting and raving personally. Now, admittedly, that can be easier said than done, but it's critical for success in emotionally charged support situations. Don't get emotionally hooked. When we let users and customers push our buttons, we lose. When we respond emotionally with anger, sarcasm, or blame, we can't respond rationally. When things heat up, we can cool off by saying that we need to research the situation and possible solutions and ask if we can get back to the user or customer at a later time. Number 4, we use the wrong words. Some trigger words can cause users and customers to become more difficult. Some of these are can't, you'll have to, or a flippant, "Sorry about that." Be sure to offer users and customers an alternative. Choices provide users and customers some say in how they want to proceed. Instead of saying, "I don't know," try, "Let me get you an answer," or "Let me find out for you." Be careful about using tentative language such as "I think" when answering customer questions. Customers don't want to hear speculation about answers to their questions. They want straight answers or an assurance that we'll get them an accurate and complete answer. Number 5, we focus on ourselves instead of seeing it from the customer or user's point of view. And sometimes we might think our customer or end user is making too much out of a small issue, and maybe by our standards they are. The point is that if the issue, whatever it is, seems like a big deal to the customer or end user, it is a big deal, regardless of how we might feel about it. We must always look at the customer or end user issues from their perspective, just the same as we would want a customer service rep who's helping us to try to see our problem from our perspective. No matter what, it is a big deal for our users and customers, and they want us to acknowledge that. It seems like I run into these 5 problem areas regularly. It's really not that hard. When we act like we care, when we give our customers the benefit of truly listening, when we maintain our composure, even in the face of angry or upset customers, when we choose our words carefully, striving for positive language, and when we try to see the situation from our customer's perspective, we can avoid these 5 customer service killers.
All right, so what are your thoughts about that video? For me, I think it made me realize how much emotion plays a part in the customer service experience, more than just doing things to check tasks off a list. We focus on how all of our tasks, actions, and conversations, and also the opposite, the lack of task, action, and communication, how these things make prospective caregivers feel. For example, returning phone calls timely and getting our prospective foster parents answers they need makes them feel respected and valued. Not doing these things often make them feel unimportant and sometimes disrespected. In case anyone is thinking, you know, why should I even be concerned about how prospective caregivers feel? I've listed some of the most valuable information relevant to customer service and satisfaction here. First, it takes more effort to attract a new customer than to keep one that you already have. 96% of dissatisfied customers won't tell you, but 91% of those complaining and unhappy customers will never come back. Dissatisfied customers will tell 10 more people, other prospective or potential foster parents in the community. They'll talk to them about their bad experience, which, will affect your ability to continue recruiting for children who need these homes. So how our foster parents feel is a really good indication of how our agencies are doing and supporting them. And this is directly related to their willingness to continue working with us to get licensed, and once licensed, their willingness to accept placements when we call. So we want to ensure that our communication and our actions work toward the goal of making prospective caregivers feel supported, protected, respected, feel competent. And when challenges in the licensing process arise, they really should feel like we can assist them in ways to help them manage situations that can be resolved. So if any of the following apply to your agency, it may be time for change when it comes to your agency's recruitment strategies. So where do you start when looking to make a change? Oh, actually, let's talk about some of these, because I think I've added a couple extra ones from what was there last year. One, does your agency receive a high number of inquiries, but only a few families are licensed this year? Does your agency routinely split sibling groups between multiple homes? Is there a trend in your county for most teens to be placed in residential care? And finally, does your agency or county have a high percentage of borrowed homes in other counties? All of these are indicators that you may not have enough homes available to meet the needs of children in your area. And if so, that means that our recruitment efforts also have to be expanded and enhanced. So let's start at the beginning, making sure that you understand the stages of recruitment as outlined on Indeed's career website. Truly understanding these stages and why they're important can help you create a more productive recruitment process by ensuring that you can replicate this process for future candidates. We'll apply these stages to foster parent. All right, so the first stage in a recruiting process is preparation. This is where you'll gather necessary materials and information. This should include determining needs of your agency and county and using that information to define caregiver profiles with unique characteristics that you're looking for to meet the needs of children in your area. For example, if you've experienced significant difficulty with placing children with medical needs, you know that one of your caregiver profiles should include adults with medical experience. If a large percentage of children recently placed have language barriers, another caregiver profile should include bilingual adults who speak the languages of children entering care. Once you prepare for the process and understand your ideal caregivers, you can begin sourcing candidates. During this stage, you'll determine where to look for the types of caregivers that are needed, and how you're going to reach out to them. If you're looking for adults with medical experience, you might plan to recruit within pediatric offices or medical clinics, or plan to reach out to first responders. For bilingual adults, you might try to develop partnerships with cultural community centers and restaurants that are frequented by families of other cultures. Or you might identify colleges or other education programs that teach other languages. Also during this stage, you should begin developing your messaging and material needed to reach potential caregivers. When you consider the places that you'll go, the flyers that you post, the messages that you convey to attract potential caregivers, your approach in recruiting adults with medical experience should be very different from the approach that you take to recruit bilingual adults. The next stage is actively searching for ideal candidates, those potential caregivers for children in your area. So this stage of actually implementing recruitment activities and hosting recruitment events is what we often think of as recruitment. We mostly put our efforts into this stage, but find ourselves falling short of our desired outcomes because we haven't placed enough focus on other stages in the recruitment process. During this stage, you're going to execute the plans that you developed during the last stage. And at times, you'll want to modify those initial plans as you begin to gain partnerships or learn of new resources to ensure that you're reaching and appealing to the types of candidates or caregivers that your agency and your county needs. All right, the next stage in a recruiting process is screening and making a determination of whether potential caregivers meet the requirements to become licensed and are a good fit for our programs. A common approach is to screen candidates. If you all don't mind putting your microphones on mute, I would really appreciate it. All right, so a common approach is to screen out candidates. If we don't think that they are going to work well with our program, or they may not be a good fit, or we might think that they may not be good foster parents. But when we do that, inquirers tend to feel judged. And some of them decide to opt out on their own and not really, they're not interested anymore, but or because they're not qualified, but simply because they feel judged. However, we do know that some inquirers are not eligible to become licensed. And after learning more, others are going to determine on their own that foster care really isn't for them. So we're going to reduce the number of those who, some of that attrition is going to happen naturally. So when we know that some inquirers aren't going to be eligible, and we know that there's going to be that natural attrition, our goal should be to screen in as many families as we can. If there is a situational or environmental barrier that might be preventing an otherwise eligible candidate from becoming licensed, our approach should always be to search for resolutions whenever we can. Once potential caregivers have been screened, the need to be prepared for their the need to be prepared for their roles as they need to be prepared for their roles as caregivers. During this stage of onboarding, potential caregivers are going to learn more about the needs of children in foster care. They're going to receive training on ways to address those needs. In foster home licensing, there is some overlap between the screening and the onboarding stages, since assessment of the family continues while they are receiving training. But please be aware, though, that while these families are being assessed by us, they're also making assessments about their abilities to meet the requirements of fostering and whether our agencies are going to be able to assist them when they need it. So essentially, you have to continue recruiting them by being responsive and by providing the resources and support that they need during the licensing process. And finally, the last stage is evaluation. And this stage is not about us assessing families. It's about taking a look at our own recruitment process. our different processes and deciding how we can actually make them better. Do we have the right tools in place to recruit the caregivers that we need? Did we communicate well and respond to families within reasonable timeframes? Do we have resources and supports to assist families through the licensing process? And if we do, how well did we do at making them available to families? This self-evaluation should result in us changing some of our strategies. All right, so let's talk about why this information is valuable to you and your agency. Reason number one is efficiency. An efficient recruitment process saves time, saves money, saves effort. So ensuring that yours is as efficient as possible is crucial. By reviewing each stage of recruitment, you can divide the recruitment process into actionable steps. Outlining these steps along with their requirements is going to provide a visual guideline to you of what you should achieve before really being able to move on to the next step. And that would help emphasize consistency and productivity throughout the process. Number two is that it helps identify qualified candidates. Using the steps of recruitment to create a more efficient process helps you accurately identify the best candidates to become licensed caregivers. Because remember, you've already used your targeted recruitment strategies and honed in on those adults that you believe would be ideal for providing the care that is needed for certain target populations. Each step outlines the requirements for the next step, and it creates a cycle of effectiveness and organization. It also helps direct you to potential caregivers. The right candidates for an organization can contribute to competency and also stability to your foster parent rosters. The last reason why these stages of recruitment should be important to you is that it can assist with proper planning. Planning an effective recruitment process allows you to remain consistent, and it can accelerate the process when it's used multiple times and when you really get used to using these stages. Proper planning can also ensure better results and may attract the candidates that you're searching for to your agency. Inquirers often appreciate an organized recruitment process because it demonstrates that a prospective agency respects their time and their efforts. All right, so let's spend a little time talking about something related to messaging. How do you capture the attention of potential caregivers? This is something that you'll have to think about when you're creating flyers or other forms of advertising and when you're hosting events and interacting with people in your communities. There's a lot of research out there on how the human brain perceives information and how it directs its focus. There's an author and investor named Ben Parr who went through a lot of this research, over 1,000 different articles and research documents, and he conducted interviews with different experts in the field. And what he ended up doing is isolating 7 of what he calls captivation triggers. And these 7 triggers were detailed in his book, which was called Captivology, The Science of Capturing People's Attention. And then it was summarized by the World Economic Forum. So I'm going to try my best to refrain from calling these triggers because in the world of child welfare and mental health, we tend to think of triggers negatively. So I am going to refer to these triggers as sparks. How about that? Let's go with sparks. So spark number 1 is automaticity. According to Ben Parr, we pay attention subconsciously and automatically to certain sights, sounds, and colors, and other sensory stimuli based on the contrast that they have with their surroundings and also the associations that we have with those different stimuli. So certain sensory cues direct attention automatically so you'll want to make sure that you are being intentional in the ways that you activate the senses of your potential caregivers. If you're planning a recruitment event, think about using colors that stand out in the surrounding environment. Use music to stimulate hearing, but also make sure that you and your staff are stimulating hearing by being vocal with those around you and being engaging, not just idly waiting for others to come to your table. And when you're able to begin conversations, take the time to ask for a first name. and actually use that person's first name when you're talking to them. In his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie wrote that a person's name to that person is the sweetest and most important sound in any language. So use that to your benefit. You also want to make sure that your environment is comfortable, or that you've made attempts to make it more comfortable. After all, we live in Michigan, and we have long, cold Michigan winters, and we do have to recruit during those winter months. But most people are going to pass on having a discussion about foster care if they're cold and uncomfortable. So if you're hosting an event in a setting that might be cold, offer hot chocolate or coffee. Did you know that body temperature can actually affect the way that you judge someone? There was a study in 2008 where a couple of researchers found that participants who held a hot cup of coffee were more likely to judge a stranger as good-natured and generous than those who held an iced coffee. They also found that holding a warm object made participants more likely themselves to be generous to other people. So just think about those ways that you can stimulate sensory when you're doing recruitment events. Spark number 2 is framing. Par explained that our frame of reference and our view of the world are affected by our past experiences, by biological wiring, cultural expectations, also by our interests and opinions and our current moods. And all of these factors create the context in which we make choices or react in the way that we do. These frames of reference lead us to either embrace and pay attention to some ideas, or to just ignore, others entirely. So the idea of framing was illustrated in a famous study at the University of Washington in 1974, asking a group of participants to watch a video of a simulated car crash. And, each group that watched this car crash, had a question to answer, but there was one variable, and it was the verb that was used to describe the crash. So some were asked about how fast were the cars going when they either collided with, or bumped, or smashed, or contacted each other. So the group that heard smashed gave the cars the highest estimated speeds. And when each group was asked a week later if the video they saw contained any broken glass, side note, it did not. The smashed group had a much higher percentage of remembering broken glass. And this shows just how powerful frame of reference is. So when it comes to foster parent recruitment, it's important to create that context to help them see how they might fit into the picture of being a foster parent and helping and being able to care for children who need homes. Help them to see that their medical skills as a medical professional are needed to help reduce placement challenges for children needing special medical care. Help bilingual adults understand that some children face barriers when English isn't their primary language. Also make these connections with adults of different races and cultures and religion when the need exists, and explain the reasons why we want to keep these kids connected to their race, their culture, and their religion. Likely many of those reasons are going to resonate with them. Spark number 3 is disruption. Simply put, we pay special attention to anything that violates our expectations. So ask unexpected questions and offer information that might be contrary to what many people expect. One way we've used this spark in recruiting foster parents is to host I'm getting tongue-tied, to host myth-busting events such as informationals on LGBTQ adults and their eligibility to become foster and adoptive parents, or flyers that offer benefits of fostering teens that dispel common myths about teens in foster care. All right, spark number 4 is reward. Dr. Kent Berridge of the University of Michigan, go Blue, believes that the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is often credited for, a lot of people think of dopamine as allowing us to experience pleasure, but Dr. Berridge believes that it's actually more closely related to creating anticipation and motivation rather than pleasure. It fuels our desire to want those things that give us pleasure, as well as more intrinsic rewards, like self-satisfaction and having a sense of purpose. This means that the prospect of capturing these things makes us pay attention. Not quite there yet, sorry. So helping prospective caregivers understand how they can make a difference and themselves making a difference will have a greater impact on their attention. All right, now we are ready for the next one. Spark number 5 is reputation. Customers consistently rate experts as being the most trusted spokespersons, more than, they trust CEOs, more than they trust celebrities to deliver information or, advice to us. This trend was explained in a 2009 study at Emory University. And in this study found that the decision-making parts of participants' brains actually slowed down or shut down when they were receiving advice from an expert. So what does that mean to us? More active listening and less judgment. That's why it's necessary to first convince someone that they should be listening to you in the first place before they can even consider your argument. So when you're out there recruiting, make sure that you can present as an expert in your field. Equip yourself with information about the specific needs of children in your area, placement trends in your area, and what your agency is looking for to meet those needs. Be able to explain the foster care process as well as the licensing process. And if you don't have the answers to their questions, let them know you're going to seek out answers and follow up with them in a timely manner. All right, spark number 6 is mystery. If you're trying to capture someone's attention, their interest, don't give away too much or exhaust the presentation all at once. It might be better to leave a conversation having something more to discuss and feeling the need to connect again than to leave the conversation feeling that the energy has died out. According to something called the Zeigarnik effect, our memory is fine-tuned to remember incomplete stories and tasks. Because we dislike uncertainty. We're actively going to try to reduce it. With recruitment documents or presentations, provide interesting information to capture attention, but then suggest that the reader or the attendee can make a call to learn more and provide contact information for them to do so. All right, and the last spark is acknowledgement. Validation and empathy from others is one of our most vital needs. Key to this is a sense of belonging to a community that cares about us. So, create that feeling for potential caregivers that they would be a part of a worthwhile community that's valued, that's supported and appreciated, and you're much more likely to gain their attention. All right, so let's take that information about the stages of recruitment and the ways that we can capture attention and make sure that we incorporate it within the recruitment process. Recruitment should be a data-driven process based on the needs of your agency and your county. And using available data, the data that's available to your agency, you want to make sure that you make specific goals that identify the groups of children that need homes and the number of homes that you need. Develop a community-based approach, building partnerships with groups, organizations, businesses, churches in your area. Allow them to assist you with recruiting the families that you need. You also want to consider culture when you're choosing messages and images for recruitment. You want to make sure that they're appropriate and accurately affect the children and care needing foster and adoptive families. Also, as we talked about, limit the use of booths and tables for general recruitment. How many targeted recruitment events should we be doing? Out of 6? Answer is 5. 5 out of 6 should be targeted. So we want to limit the use of general recruitment activities and events. And then layer your recruitment strategies. Make sure that the events and activities build on each other month after month to ensure that the community continues to see and hear messages about the need for foster and adoptive families. So what would it look like to use data available to your agency? Of course, your county will have the goal for the overall number of homes that should be licensed, as well as the goal for homes that are needed for children ages 0 to 12, for teens, sibling groups, and children with disabilities. But what you will want to think about beyond those numbers, and ask yourself is, who are the children that we're having the most difficult time placing? What age are they? What race are they? Do we have more trouble placing boys than we do girls? What do these kids need that make placing them so difficult? So after asking yourself, suppose you determine that your county has significant difficulty with placing non-white teen girls. Your agency may want to make a goal that within the next year, you'll need to license 6 new homes for African American and Latina girls ages 13 to 17. All right, so where can you find these homes? Where can you find homes for these children? Remember that our goal is to have a pool of foster parents that reflect the children in care. So you'll want to look within places where African American and Latina girls and their families can be found. Schools in African American and Latino communities, local churches, community sports teams, and then identify the adults who are caring for these African American and Latina girls. Then the goal will be to inform leaders and families in these places about the number of children in care from their community, and the much lower numbers of foster homes in the community that share race and culture with these children. An important connection that you'll need to make is to help these leaders or others who are a part of your target audience within these schools, businesses, and community groups. You want to help them understand how their principles and values relate to foster care and adoption. Does it fit with their traditions, their responsibilities, or their goals? I want to illustrate this by using an example of a recent recruitment effort of Orchards Children's Services partnering with the Wayne County MDHHS to increase the number of teen homes in the area. First, I do want to say thank you to both agencies for sharing their information and their outcomes about this event. These agencies were able to work with the Southfield High School's athletic director to host a recruitment event one day in April during their varsity baseball and softball games. So let's kind of take a look at some of the details of the event. All right, so you want to start with the plan. These agencies began with a plan outlining their goal, advertising, which included an announcement in the school's newsletter, their staffing needs. They made a plan about the documents they would share, snacks they would use, and beverages that they would make available, and other day of event details. And they also outlined a budget for carrying all of this out. And then next is preparation. During their preparation for the event, they had t-shirts, they had bags, they had rack cards about fostering teams, and all of these were made for the event. This isn't necessary for every targeted event that you might have, but this is a great way to create a theme and to increase visibility during your event. It is very important for each event that you do have information that is specific and relevant to the target population that you consider, and how you're going to engage potential caregivers, how you're going to begin conversations with them, and how you'll document contact information from individuals who show interest. And then finally, play ball. After all the planning and preparation, it's time to play ball. On the day of the event, they brought their table, a canopy, a banner to set up in a high traffic area. They provided hot chocolate and donuts and handed out bags with water, a granola bar, Mish Kids promo items, and the rack card that they had created about fostering teens. They also brought additional material for the table, including the mayor photo cards featuring teens who are available for adoption, and engage people about the need for teen foster parents. They even set up a QR code that took families directly to an inquiry form. As it turns out, the day of the event was cold with high winds, so the agencies weren't able to set up their banner or papers that would just fly away in the wind. Because of the weather, their primary engagement was to walk around and to hand out the bags of material. This actually allowed them to make contact with most of the attendees at the games. However, the agencies found that attendance at girls' softball games are relatively low in comparison to other high school sports. And also some workers thought that a script or talking points might help them know what to say when they're engaging people at a targeted recruitment event. So would you say that this event was successful? It doesn't sound like the outcomes were exactly what the agencies expected, but there were some really positive takeaways. The athletic director enjoyed working with them and invited them back whenever they want to host another recruitment event. Relationships actually open doors. So this new relationship might lead to the agencies gaining an opportunity to recruit at other schools in the community. These agencies have also gained a ton of feedback about the things that they should continue to do and things that they should do differently during future events to target homes for teens. After every recruitment event, I recommend that you take the time to evaluate the documents, to evaluate and to actually make notes about your thoughts about the event and its outcomes within the first 24 hours. And then again, about 2 weeks later, your recollection of all the details are going to be the freshest during the first 24 hours. You'll want to make sure that you're considering overall attendance at the event, as well as the number of families that you were able to engage with. And then think about any factors that might have affected your ability to engage with potential caregivers, and consider whether these are factors that might be different in the future, that, are these things that can change in the future. This is a good time to schedule yourself to reach out to any inquirers that provided contact information. All of that's within the first 24 hours. And then after 2 weeks, you'll want to reflect on any progress that was made with inquirers. Have any inquirers that attended your event engaged in additional conversations about licensure or being scheduled, or have any of them been scheduled to attend an orientation? Considering and documenting these outcomes should really help you determine whether the event that you had is something that you would want to do in the future. And if so, are there things that you should change to increase its chances of success? All right, let's continue talking about targeted recruitment for teen homes. First of all, where can you find potential foster parents for teens? Existing foster parents of teens usually have prior experience with teenagers, either personally or professionally. So targeting those who are already, who may already have connections with teens, and even better, those who have connections with teens in foster care, is a good place to start when it comes to recruitment efforts for teen homes. Many of these people understand the developmental process that teens are going through, and often have a better understanding of coping behaviors versus normal teen behaviors. You'll notice that LGBTQIA+ families are listed here amongst the group of adults that you can look to as potential foster parents for teens. It's been found that their level of motivation toward adoption is often higher when compared to other groups, and their relatability with teens is often higher, given their own experiences of feeling isolated or different from others. All right, so why is it often so difficult to place teens? Some of the common misperceptions and barriers are listed here. Many people believe that teens in foster care are uncontrollable, that teens in foster care are too far gone to be helped. It's too late for them to make changes, that teens in foster care will be a negative influence on the kids in their home, particularly younger children. That foster families sometimes feel that they're not able to handle the issues that teens in care might bring. But what's the real story? The real story is that teens in foster care are very much like other teens, and that they also need unconditional love and support of a family. That teens in foster care are often strong, talented, and resilient. And so to get families to continue caring for teens, you'll really need to highlight those real truths. Families need to know, yes, teenagers are known to push boundaries, but this is common to all teens, not just those in care. The major difference between teens in foster care and those who aren't is the presence of a stable and loving family that's going to be there for them unconditionally. You'll also need to make sure that families know that adolescence is a time of great transition, and teens need a consistent support system during these changes. Like any teen, those in care do best when they can adapt to the knowledge adapt with the knowledge and the experience that they have. Although teens in foster care face a number of challenges, oftentimes further complicated by being placed in foster care, they also have their own set of strengths and talents, and many of them show incredible resiliency. And finally, you want to make sure that your potential caregivers understand that teens in care need the same thing that everyone else needs in order for their strengths to manifest, and that's stability, that's someone to nurture them in a good education, healthcare, and hope that they'll have a more successful and a brighter future. All right, so I want to remind you of a resource that we have developed to complement your recruitment for teen homes. This flyer highlights the positive characteristics that many teens have. As you'll notice, it includes an area that allows for local MDHHS contact information to be added. Private agencies are encouraged to use the information on the flyer and create a similar resource with your agency's contact information. MDHHS agencies can find this on the public web under form. I'm sorry, actually it's not under forms. It is on the foster care page under different resources that are available. We also have yard signs and window clings that feature images of teens. Remember, we talked about when you're recruiting for a specific population to make sure that your documents and material have images of the groups of children that you are recruiting for. You want to make sure that you have that very specific material rather than the ones with pictures of the cute little boys or the cute little girls. In recent years, we've gone away from featuring pictures of unhappy or moody teens, and that's part of dispelling myths that so many people have that teens are nothing but trouble. So we don't want to feature teens who look angry or who look moody. While we should definitely be honest about the challenges that teens might present, just as we should about children of other agencies, we also want to highlight that teens are resilient, that they are impressionable, and that they need love and care just like other children. During the past couple of years, we've discussed teen self-recruitment cards as a potential resource, and we are finally able to develop our own here in Michigan. And we sent them to the county offices several months ago. In case you're not familiar with these cards, they're a tool that allows teens to participate in their own recruitment and local efforts to recruit homes for other teens. It's empowering for them to have their own voices heard. And again, it helps others to see how a teen in care might look, act, or feel. This is one of the best ways for people to get rid of preconceived notions about teenagers in foster care, to connect with their stories and to imagine themselves parenting a teen in foster care. These teen self-recruitment cards were used in Oregon successfully. Caseworkers provided these cards to teens with their primary caseworkers' contact information already written on them. And then there's a blank space for teens to write their own names. And then what they'll do is they'll take these cards and approach people that they feel connected to about becoming foster parents. In Oregon, this tool was so effective that 85% of the people who were given these cards called for more information, and 50% of them actually started the process to become a foster family. Other ways to involve teens in recruitment efforts is to invite them to participate in recruitment events or to volunteer at events as hosts or hostesses or also speakers, so that those attending can see them involved in something positive and productive. All right, so when we discussed where to look for potential foster parents for teens, there's a group that was missing, and that's your existing foster parents. They're going to be your very best resource for increasing the number of homes that are available for teens. New foster parents have to learn to navigate the world of foster care. They have to learn the services that are available to them. And they have to learn how to meet the unique needs of teens in foster care all at the same time, making this a really challenging scenario. So, on the other hand, experienced caregivers of younger children who agreed to begin caring for teens have already learned their way around the system. You know, they've had an opportunity, they've faced some challenges, they've gained confidence and their ability to work through them. And all of this allows them to focus more on more of their energy on caring for the teens in their home. So if you want to increase your pool of foster parents for teens, you should really bolster your retention efforts, making sure that you provide the training and the support that's needed to improve the percentage of foster parents that remain licensed with your agency. These are the families that are going to provide the most stable placements for teens. Another way existing foster parents can help is by becoming recruiters within their own networks. Word of mouth is the most effective strategy in any recruitment effort. You know, hearing from someone you already know and trust who has experience fostering teens yields greater results than being recruited by a stranger. If you want, you know, foster parents to recommend fostering to others, you'll want to make sure that they have positive experiences to share. So again, the type of support you provide plays a big role in this. In addition to the customer service aspects of support that we've already discussed, I recommend that each agency develop a folder or electronic collection of different resources specifically for teen caregivers. This might include local support groups for foster parents, information about mentorship programs that connect newer parents with experienced parents, resources like after-school activities for teens, summer employment opportunities, respite options for foster parents, you know, the phone number to reach a foster care navigator since they are able to provide support services even after licensure now. And any other resources that you can offer to address common needs and concerns that foster parents of teens might have. All right, we are going to transition to talking about sibling home recruitment. I want to set the stage for this by showing a portion of a video on the importance of keeping siblings in foster care together. During the video, you'll see and hear several different youth talk about their experiences. So let's take a look.
It's definitely important for siblings to be placed together. It's just the comfort that you have in another home. Like, you're in someone else's home, you don't feel their home comfort that they feel. Having your sibling next to you is the most comfortable thing that you could have in someone else's house. Just being placed with my brother, it was like really helpful actually. When I needed him, he was always there. He knew what I was going through. I always just had him by my side. You know, we took care of each other. That was just the best part.
My siblings were like, you know, everybody has that person who you trust and who you're close to, and my siblings was the one for me. You know, at that time that I was in foster home and stuff, my siblings were everything to me. You know, they were my world, cause they were just everything. Yeah.
I did have 3 brothers that lived with my father and their mother that I wanted to be a part of their lives. I always asked if there was some way that I could go and see them, and I was repeatedly told no because of the whole dad issue. Them telling me that I couldn't see my brothers just didn't make any sense to me. So it was like, after a while of just being told no, like, I stopped asking and became discouraged. I was just like, okay, maybe one day things will get better, and, you know, when I can age out of the system, I'll seek them out. I would have been a lot more positive and a lot less depressed because I would have felt like I had something to look forward to, and I would have felt that I had additional support, family support. It's different, you know, having support from friends and foster parents and people that are hired to work with you. It's different from having family support. So that's what I really craved.
There's 6 of us. We entered care when I was 5 years old. I have a twin sister, sister, older brother, little sister, little brother. Having brothers and sisters is like having friends you can never get rid of, and we just had to have it, because that's it, you're all you got, and especially in that transition of entering into foster care, you feel alone. You don't feel like you belong to that family because you have this label of being a foster child. And I remember the first foster home we got into, I was 5 years old and my little sister was only 1 year old. And being separated from her and her foster parents, they didn't allow us to see her because she was only a baby. That was rough. That was like, it's depressing. You feel hopeless. You feel like you need to be helping them or just making sure that they're okay. And that's probably like one of the worst things that you endure in foster care is not being able to see your brothers and sisters. Because when you're in foster care or when you get separated from your siblings, that responsibility and that, I don't even know, the weight that is placed on you as an older sibling to take care and make sure that our siblings are being taken care of is heavy.
I have 3 older siblings. I'm the youngest of 4. The toughest thing would probably have to be me being separated from my siblings and not being able to keep in touch with them. I think it's so essential for us to be together. When we enter foster care, we lose everything. We lose our family, we lose, our moms, our dads, where we lived. Everything is just so unfamiliar. And to have your siblings there is probably what you need, in order for you to move on or to move forward in life or in foster care. How can you tell?
Okay, let's go ahead and stop there. Feel free to enter your thoughts and your feelings about the video in the chat. What you heard from these people are some of the same things that I plan to discuss, but listening to those who actually lived through those experiences for me and lived through those separations, it just has a greater impact. Jessica, are there any thoughts that we should acknowledge in the chat?
No, I don't see any right now.
Okay.
Oh wait, we have a couple. Sorry, they just started coming in. So we have one that says powerful and heartbreaking that we have to separate at times for placement, and somebody else said if siblings are separated, they need at least weekly visits. That's what we have.
Okay. That was the whole point of this, is just to really allow those messages to utilize some of those messages in your recruitment for siblings when you're communicating things with potential caregivers.
Someone that.
Okay, so, all right. So one of the most valuable contributions that we can offer children in foster care is to help them maintain their connections with their sisters and brothers. According to evidence-based research, as you heard, and also as you heard from multiple youth in the video, siblings who are separated experience more negative outcomes, including higher use of services and resources resulting from emotional difficulties related to the separation from one another, more incidences of running away, more placement disruptions, and also lower rates of adoption. So the long-term effects are just as significant as well. So on the other hand, placement with siblings tend to lead to better outcomes, resulting from an enhanced sense of safety and well-being. In dysfunctional families, the sibling bond is often even stronger because these siblings tend to be interdependent on one another and may even have developed primary attachments in the absence of consistent caring adults. Their whole worlds are often changed when children enter foster care. So being able to remain with siblings offers a sense of comfort and stability. It also offers identity and support, and it helps to preserve some of their connections with their family history and culture. Give me one moment, I'm about to cough. All right, sorry about that. So let's talk about some of the common barriers. Okay, let's talk about some of the common barriers to placing siblings together or finding homes for siblings. Sometimes capacity and space in foster homes to accommodate larger sibling groups is a barrier. Sometimes licensing foster homes that cover a large range in age is difficult. And also at times, one or more siblings have a significant need or behavioral concern. A lot of successful placements for sibling groups come from families that the children already know or have some sort of personal connection with. It can be beneficial to see families in local schools, churches, community sports organizations, and also large families have already established norms for family functioning and how to work together, how to move together, how to function when there are a lot of children or a lot of children are already in the family. They've already adapted to different personalities and behaviors, so they're often more willing to parent sibling groups. Also recruiting within these groups that you see at the bottom of the screen, in schools and faith-based organizations, community organizations, and families that already have children in the home. Recruitment amongst these groups should include letters, presentations, panel discussions, posters or newsletters, newsletter ads, and of course, as we talked about earlier, word of mouth. Those discussions can be included with those affiliated with these groups and organizations. If you have any other thoughts about places to look for potential foster parents, please share them in the chat. I definitely want this to be a situation where if some of you have great ideas, let's share with the rest of the group so that they can try some of these recruitment strategies within their own counties and areas. All right, each of the regional resource teams have recently made plans to host recruitment events to target sibling homes, and I do want to share some of their ideas. One of the teams recently hosted an online Q&A session that included 2 MYOI youth who were twins and a foster parent, highlighting the need for foster homes for siblings. They advertised the event on Facebook and they offered a small gift card to those who signed up and attended. The regional resource team reported that the event was really well attended and that a lot of people actually participated and asked questions during the session. And this event yielded about 15 inquiries. The team did also note that the session was so well attended that they might actually have to limit the number of gift cards that they're able to offer if they did something like this in the future. This same team is also going to be helping to facilitate a presentation at an art festival in Oakland County, where a youth who was previously in foster care is going to be sharing her story, focusing on the importance of sibling groups being able to stay together. Those with an interest in fostering will be directed to a recruitment table at the event. Another team is working with the business Books and Beans in Owasso to host a story time and coffee talk about siblings in foster care. I think I showed you the pictures out of order, but I'm sorry about that. So after reading a children's story, the recruiters are going to be talking more about fostering siblings and encouraging discussions with participants. So while I don't have all the details about the regional resource team's plans for those last 2 events, because they have not yet occurred, I imagine they're going to be sharing information about siblings in foster care in Owasso and Oakland County and in the Metro Detroit area. And they'll include the prevalence of separation of siblings from one another. Likely they're also going to be making sure they have flyers or other documents with images of children who look like siblings, and then also include messages about the importance of keeping siblings together. All right, let's move on to talking about targeted recruitment of homes for children with special needs, which we will define as any documented physical, mental, medical, or emotional condition, or any other clinically diagnosed disability excuse me, that causes some level of impairment. It's really important to clarify this definition because it sets the stage for how you recruit for this population of children. Much like Black and Brown children, there is a disproportionate number of children with special needs in foster care when we compare that to the general public. These children are more likely to have experienced abuse and neglect leading to their placement in foster care. And unfortunately, they're also more likely to experience maltreatment and abuse while they're in care. So given this really difficult reality faced by children with special needs, recruitment efforts to find parents who are able to understand their needs and to provide a safe and a nurturing environment is especially significant for this group. All right, so finding families who are already prepared to care for children with special needs can also be really challenging. In many situations, our best solution is going to be to identify the training and the other resources that are going to be needed to prepare and to support families who are willing to care for children with special needs. Just like our approach to gaining homes for teens, recruiting homes for children with special needs often will need to take place among the foster parents that you already have, because they've already learned the ins and outs of fostering and they've already faced and overcome certain challenges. Having experience builds confidence in their ability to take on new challenges with the proper training and guidance. So while these existing homes won't count towards your annual licensing goals, they often are going to create better placement matches and reduce the need for replacement of these children. While many potential foster parents will have to be developed to care for children with special needs, there are some groups who already have experience with these children that often make great candidates for recruitment given their experience and skills. So places to look for potential parents of children with special needs include medical professionals, mental health professionals, teachers and paraprofessionals, and then also experienced parents. Whether you target those who have prior experience with children who have special needs, or you look to develop foster parents to care for these children, those foster parents and those potential foster parents should share a few common traits. And those are listed at the bottom of the screen. Those traits include patience, a willingness to seek special resources for these children and to advocate for any special resources that they might need. They should be able to understand diagnoses and have the willingness and time to continue learning about different medical diagnoses, what their outcomes are, any associated behaviors and conditions, and recommended treatments. As our part as child placement agencies are going to be, it should be to share additional training resources that are going to help these parents strengthen their knowledge and skills, also to connect them with support groups for parents of children with special needs. I believe there is an ongoing online group that's facilitated by one of our foster care navigators who has adopted and cares for a child with significant medical needs. And so I believe there's a monthly online support group out of Lenawee County, I believe, that can be attended by foster parents in other areas. And as always, another responsibility we have is just to make sure that we are responsive to their concerns. Any parent that has kind of outside of the norm responsibilities for care, it's important that we are attentive to all parents' needs, but particularly those who face additional challenges. All right, so we have discussed the importance of building a team of families that's capable of meeting the diverse needs of children in foster care. And this includes lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, and allied families. So I just named what the acronym, all of the letters in the acronym, just to make sure that we are being clear about what we're talking about. We want to make sure that we're inclusive of these families because they can be good resources for youth in care. So we're going to watch a video by the Human Rights Campaign as we begin to talk about recruiting in the LGBTQ community. While their resources can absolutely be utilized, I want you to pay really close attention to the messages of the young lady in the video and the couple who's going to share their experiences with us.
My mom was diagnosed with cancer when I was 9 or 10. My mother was my best friend. She passed away like a year or two after she was diagnosed. I came back to live with my mother's sister, and then I came out to her, and she put me into a facility.
What we have found is that many children come into foster care because their families are unable and unwilling to accept who they are.
All Children, All Families is a program of the Human Rights Campaign Foundation that provides resources, training, and technical assistance for child welfare organizations so that they can better serve the LGBTQ community.
People who work in foster care need to learn about gender identity, sexuality, all of that. It's life or death. They always feel like, we have to hurry up and house these kids so they don't end up homeless. It doesn't matter if they have somewhere to stay if that person isn't going to be affirming of their identity. You put this queer foster kid in this situation where they have to choose between safety and validation, which are both safety issues.
The All Children, All Families program gives us an opportunity to not just train staff, but to look at our procedures and our policies and our practice. We are hopeful that what we're doing will transform the delivery of child welfare services to our LGBTQ youth.
At the end of the day, All Children, All Families is working towards the same mission as the child welfare organizations that we partner with. We do this work to make sure that no young person feels isolated or alone.
I knew many years ago that I wanted to be a father. I even had names already picked out. Being with him opened me up to be loved and to see that I had love around me.
We decided to open up our lives and our home to foster. When we went into the agency,
I was nervous.
I was nervous. I didn't want to be discriminated against. I didn't know how we'd be received.
We want to recruit people who are going to be supportive resources for our young people, regardless of how they identify.
All Children, All Families helps to bridge the gap between agencies who need more foster and adoptive parents and the many LGBTQ adults who are interested in foster parenting or adoption.
The people that were in charge, they made us feel comfortable.
We went to a training session.
Yeah.
And from there, it was just go, go, go.
With our license, we have the ability to foster and adopt as well. Mm-hmm. And so we want to be able to create a family and help create families for them.
We know that agencies want to do better with the LGBTQ community. It takes real intention and buy-in from leadership. It takes policy and practice change, and All Children, All Families offers those resources.
I have met so many caring, good people. Being Black, being queer, being in foster care, all of these things are just such painful things at times because of society. Having foster care workers who know how to handle my case and who know what it means to be LGBTQ and are willing to learn and are willing to validate me means the world.
It's about having a home full of love, laughter, a place where you belong. And I think everybody should be able to have that.
Any work we're doing to create more loving environments for kids in care can help us ensure that all young people move through the world feeling loved and a sense of belonging.
The All Children, All Families program can absolutely help change lives.
All right, well, I hope you found some of the themes and messages that you heard useful for developing messaging and recruitment material to reach potential caregivers in the LGBTQIA+ community. So let's discuss some of the challenges that exist relative to recruiting LGBTQ families. All right, so let's see, common barriers include biases regarding LGBTQ individuals in parenting roles, believing that they wouldn't make good parents. Another is poor relationships within the LGBTQ community. I'm sorry, not within, but with the LGBTQ community. And then misperceptions by LGBTQ families about their eligibility to foster and adopt. Sometimes they don't believe that they can adopt or foster children. And so we know that children with LGBTQIA plus parents may face the discriminatory behavior of others. But fortunately, they've been found to have overwhelmingly positive outcomes in parenting. The National Resource for Permanency and Family Connections and also Adopt US Kids, they compiled a bunch of resources and results from more than 25 years of research on children of non-heterosexual parents, and they examine factors like self-esteem, sexual identity, adjustment, and quality of social relationships. And the findings have consistently indicated that children of lesbian and gay parents are at least as well adjusted overall as those of parents as other parents, and they grow up as successfully as children of heterosexual parents. Also, no evidence was found to suggest that children of these parents are more likely to be LGBT themselves. Instead, children are just who they are. Excuse me one moment. I apologize, this tickle in my throat keeps coming up at the wrong time. All right, so until recent years, LGBTQ families were an untapped resource, and in some cases, education and competency of agency staff is still needed for us to successfully engage and support and empower potential LGBTQIA plus families. And so, when we are wanting to engage them, there are a few considerations that we should be aware of. And that includes awareness and competency training and education prior to trying to engage these families. Also, we should make sure that our marketing material reflects LGBTQIA plus families, just like we talked about with other populations of children. Or special and target populations. We also want to be aware that misperceptions and current inclusive agency policies and efforts should be addressed directly. It's not something that we should kind of beat around the bush and skate around, because they are going to be direct questions that they want answered. So we should make sure that we are addressing those things directly. There are some reports that indicate that up to 75% of LGBTQIA plus families and couples who inquire about foster care and adoption, these families actually follow through to complete the certification process. That is much higher than many of our heterosexual counterparts. All right, so this means that, this might mean that LGBTQIA plus resources in your community and asking for resources and, looking at families that LGBTQIA plus families who are maybe already working with your agencies and asking them for your help to determine what is appropriate and respectful terminology so that we can continue to engage these families. It also might mean updating your questionnaires and forms to be more inclusive, rather than asking for a husband and wife, to ask for parent one or parent two. And also instead of asking, are you married, ask, will you be co-parenting with anyone, just to make sure that our language is reflective of non-traditional families, and if we are wanting to be inclusive, to make sure our forms and our documents reflect that. All right, so targeted recruitment within the LGBTQIA plus community, where should we look? We should look at LGBTQIA plus community organizations, such as PFLAG, which is Parents, Families, and Friends of Lesbian and Gays, Pride events. There should be many going on this month, with it being Pride Month. And so those may be good opportunities to recruit and find LGBTQIA plus families. Also LGBTQ friendly churches, businesses, and parent support groups. Also, you may ask some of your existing parents to host foster wear parties or other events to reach out to other friends and family that they may have who may be interested in foster care. Excuse me. And then also Safe Schools and Communities Coalitions. We recently developed a flyer that can be used during Pride Month, but also throughout the year to recruit LGBTQ families. We're planning to have this made into an official publication and place it online in the recruitment toolkit. But for now, we'll share this version with you. I'm not sure if this is something we can enter into the chat. Maybe we can add it in at the end of the training, or make sure that these resources are available on the Thinkific website if it's something that you're interested in. We also created these window signs to support recruitment of LGBTQ families. These can be provided to existing LGBTQ parents to encourage word of mouth recruitment. It can be used during LGBTQ recruitment events and also shared with allied organizations and businesses while developing partnerships that are going to promote recruitment within the LGBTQ community. All right, we're going to move on to talking about recruitment within faith-based organizations. Studies show that the #1 commonality among people who foster is altruism or believing in or practicing selfless concern in the well-being of other people. This is a value that's often taught in communities of faith. And a great number of Michigan's current foster parents are involved in communities of faith. And many people actually agree that some of their best foster parents are members of the faith community. Some of the other reasons we should recruit within the faith community are that, they typically have already established trust and built strong relationships in their local communities. They're often rooted within their values and tend to assume ownership in helping to resolve different problems and needs that exist within their local communities. Their links to other faith-based organizations within statewide and national networks or coalitions might be able to offer additional resources. So connecting with one group may lead to partnerships and relationships with other churches or faith-based organizations within their networks. And then finally, they tend to have leaders who are accessible and visible and influential within their communities. So being able to gain the ear of many of these leaders is actually very useful in building these partnerships and relationships. All right, so while there are some common values among different faith communities, when we're working with them, it's important to remember that they are all different. Different religions or different faiths, they're all different. So the way that we engage them has to be different as well. Each community has its own set of priorities and beliefs, and understanding what the community believes to be important is the best way to develop common ground and to get them to consider partnering with you and with your agency. But you first have to make sure that you can establish trust before the real work can happen. It's often a good idea to connect with a leader or a respected and involved member of a faith organization and spark their interest first, and their desire to get involved. And then they can take that message on to other leaders and other members of their congregation, utilizing their voice and help in spreading the message about the needs of children in care in your community. Some of the ways faith organizations can help are, as you see on the screen. You can, ask them to add inserts or information for their church bulletins. You can ask them to display flyers or posters. They may help with establishing foster parent support groups for members who foster. If there are existing foster parents in their congregations, but there's no support group, sometimes they may be open to forming those support groups. You may ask them about hosting clothing or supply drives to assist foster families and support children in care. You can also ask them about developing mentorship programs where members of their congregation become mentors for children in care. They also may be willing to provide space to host different training or recruitment or support activities. You can ask about them providing respite events or volunteers to become approved to be respite caregivers. And then finally, at times, they may allow presentations during their services where a member of your agency can go in and talk to the congregation about the need for homes for children in care in their community. All right, if your agencies have some ideas about partnering with faith communities and need some extra information or tips, please feel free to reach out to our Community and Faith-Based Initiative coordinator, Trina Richardson. She has a great deal of experience in this area, and she's a master at really developing relationships, which, as we discussed, is imperative for successfully working with communities of faith. All right, one area of recruitment that's often overlooked is the development of purposeful strategies to increase the number of Native American foster homes. This is especially important in areas where we have higher percentages of American Indian children, to improve our ability to place these children in homes that reflect their culture and to comply with both the Indian Child Welfare Act and the Michigan Indian Family Preservation Act. There are a few considerations to keep in mind when recruiting Native American families. At least one foster parent must be a tribal member in order for the placement to be considered Native American. Recruitment materials should clearly indicate that you're looking for members of federally recognized tribes to become foster parents, and the images and messages should be culturally appropriate for Native American families. Given the historical relationship between Native American tribes and the government, it might take a lot of effort to build trust with tribal communities. It should be noted that individuals in some Native American families may have experienced foster care themselves or had relatives who were in foster care. Prior to 1978, when the Indian Child Welfare Act was enacted, as many as 1 out of every 4 Native American children were in some form of out-of-home care, including forced placement and abuse and boarding schools that were designed especially to strip them of their culture. So many Native American people don't want to expose their families to what they experienced. Some may not trust the child welfare system and what it represents. However, when they are willing to participate in discussions about foster care and efforts to increase the number of Native American homes, it's worth it to continue respectfully engaging Native American communities. This respectful engagement is what it's going to take to gain valuable insight from tribal elders and members who can provide information about important cultural norms for their tribes. Their insight and information will enable your agency to develop not just what we think is appropriate in terms of material or approaches and interacting with Native American families, but what they believe is culturally appropriate targeted recruitment strategies for engaging their homes and families. And the final consideration is, that a good place to start might be to visit tribal websites to learn more about their history, their values, and their programs first, before trying to engage members of the tribe directly. This might also be a great resource for learning about tribal events where recruitment events might take place. All right, so where can you look for Native American foster parents? Tribal events, including powwows, health fairs, and other cultural gatherings, tribal board meetings and the newsletters on their websites, fosterware parties that may be hosted by existing tribal foster parents, and then resource organizations outside of the tribe that may serve tribes or tribal members. These ideas work best when they're done in collaboration with an endorsement from tribal representatives, including respected elders, community leaders, and spiritual leaders. There's a resource called Treat Them Like Gold. It's a best practice guide to partnering with resource families. And they recommend a very specific approach to Native American recruitment. And it's called the door-to-door approach. And this approach is supposed to be used to overcome resistance when recruiting within the Native American community. In this approach, a family recruiter would begin by going to a respected leader or elder first, informing the leader about the need for resource families, and then asking them to recommend families that they believe would be good at taking care of children. And then once a few names are gathered, then the worker would start the process of visiting each of these families' homes. And during the visit, the worker would talk to them about the child welfare system and the need for resource families, but not actually ask them about their interest in providing foster care just yet. The worker might say, people around here say that you care about your kids. Do you know anyone you think would also be good at taking care of kids? And the worker might come back several times before asking the family directly to consider becoming a resource family. And this door-to-door approach is considered polite and respectful when engaging with Native American families. All right, so we talked earlier about the stages of recruitment and capturing attention of potential caregivers. Now let's talk more about planning recruitment events and ways that you can develop and utilize partnerships to help you recruit. Here we show a continuum of partnerships that describes the different roles that individuals and groups can play in recruiting others. You have those who provide referrals and leads of potential caregivers. You have those team players, those people who will go with you to help recruit families for foster care. And then you have recruiters, so those who gather interest on their own, and they'll reach out and recruit families outside of things that you have planned collectively. So well-rounded recruitment strategies are going to have people within all three different roles on the continuum. You'll want to make sure that you are considering foster parents as recruitment partners. And they make some of the very best partners because they know what it takes to be a foster parent. They know the kids and what it's like to care for them. They're connected to resources that help them care for kids. They have connections with other people like them, and they have a compelling message because they live the life of fostering. All right, Mayor has created an effective recruitment event strategy with advice for planning recruitment events. Before events, they recommend preparing all items that are going to be needed, ensuring that staff know how to engage with potential families. That is similar to some of the feedback that we heard about the teen recruitment event that was held at Southfield High School, is that the staff needed to know what to say to families when they were engaging them. So having, practicing kind of a speech, prior to going out to recruitment events might be beneficial for staff to feel more comfortable in engaging those in the recruitment environment. Not only does, that include knowing how to answer questions from potential families and what material should be provided when we talk about preparation, but it also includes being present in the moment by minimizing or eliminating cell phone usage, and not just sitting down at a table, but maybe standing in front or beside the table so that you are able to greet and talk to people as they come by. This also helps with visibility and takes on a more active approach to interacting with families rather than just passively waiting them to come to you. During events, Mayor advises that you give away trinkets and other, other things that might attract people to your table. Maybe a free drawing might be used to create excitement during these events. If it's a kid-friendly setting, a short game or activity should be available or facilitated by a staff person to occupy children while parents are able to talk to another staff person. Information provided to families should be clear and it should be simple. It should include contact information that's easy to find. Individual cards to collect contact information should be considered rather than having a sign-up sheet that leaves the family's contact information exposed, because we definitely want to protect confidentiality, even from the very beginning of the process. You also want to make sure that you have information present about other ways to help. since everyone isn't able to become a foster parent, it doesn't mean that they may not be interested in helping in other ways. So, they might want to become a mentor or a volunteer, make a donation. So just make sure that at your recruitment events that you include information about other ways that people can get involved. To increase the number of inquirers that actually take the next step, it is imperative that you have a strong plan for follow-up after the events. And that includes a debrief with the staff to discuss those factors that might have, made the event successful or ineffective. And it's a good idea to document these details and review them when planning future events. What you see on the screen is the event checklist and assessment that Mayor has created. We definitely encourage the use of these or something similar to this, as they can become a very valuable tool when it comes to AFPIR planning, because you can look back and see which events you may have found to be really successful or beneficial, and have feedback about things that might need to change, so that you'll know if it's something that you want to repeat or not. All right, also follow-up should include a plan to contact inquirers within 2 to 3 days of the event, while their motivation is highest and while they still remember details about the contact or communication that took place during the event. All right, so what happens after the initial inquiry? You want to make sure that you log the call, including the inquirer's contact information, so that you're able to follow up timely. Send a welcome packet to the family. Make sure that you're thanking them for their time and their interest. Remind them of important dates that may be coming up, including the orientation. And make sure that you don't try to send everything that the person needs to know about the foster care process or becoming a foster parent. Only send enough information that's needed for the next step or two, so that you don't overwhelm inquirers. And then you want to make sure that you keep them engaged. Make sure that you engage them immediately after, within 2 to 3 days for a first contact, and that it's not more than 2 weeks, if possible, before they're able to complete the orientation. And if it's going to be longer than that, then be sure to follow up and call, ask if they have questions, so that they stay engaged in the process. All right, again, your orientation does not have to be, you don't have to provide all of the information needed for licensure. You definitely want to provide information about the process, information about your agency's policies and that type of thing. But you want to try to limit your orientations to a 2 to 3 hour time frame. Agencies definitely have to find the right balance in providing enough information to help potential foster parents decide whether they want to continue with the licensing process, without overwhelming them with so much information that they feel discouraged about continuing. So limiting that information that they receive can not only help them retain the details better and improve their sense of being able to successfully complete certification, but also cut down on agency costs for materials needed for orientations. So you want to make sure that you are covering offering an introduction to the agency, the licensing process, and what it would be like to foster or adopt the child. Discuss the role of the foster parent, including the importance of teaming with birth parents to work toward reunification. It should also cover any information covered by DCWL to be trained during orientation. Also, it's orientations are an early opportunity for the agency to communicate the ways that it can assist and support parents to be successful during certification and throughout the journey of caring for children. If you're hosting an in-person orientation, make sure that the room is clean, well lit, inviting and welcoming, and also accessible to those who may need accommodations or have wheelchairs. The material that you present and provide should be up to date, it should be easy to understand, and it should be conveyed in a respectful and positive manner. For home studies, as we know, many inquirers find the home study process to be intrusive and require a lot of information. And so we just want to make sure that during the process that we are explaining why families need to provide certain information, but make sure that we're not asking more information that is necessary. We want the process, the decision-making process, to be mutual. It should be done in collaboration with the family, as opposed to something that's just done and a family finds out a decision. Ideally, you want to reach the same conclusions about whether the family is ready for fostering, whether they're prepared, what the age ranges are. Those are decisions that ideally should that should be made together. During the home study process, the family should be engaged to explore their skills, their strengths, their limits, their vulnerabilities, what their values are, what their expectations are, and their motivations for wanting to be licensed. Prior to the home visit, it's a good idea to have a self-audit checklist that you can provide to families so that it's not completely a surprise, but they know things that they can look for and prepare to be ready for the home visit. Ensure that you take blank forms to the home visit in case there's something that you sent in the orientation packet that they may have misplaced, and so that you can still make progress. Have those forms available so the family can continue. If necessary, provide assistance in completing certain documents if needed. And if you don't have a lot of time because of caseloads, be aware that foster care navigators are willing and able to help provide some of these resources in helping families, explaining certain things to families and helping them move through the process. Also, try to identify issues that might require additional documentation early so that the family has time to gather them. In other areas, other parts of the certification process can continue without halting the entire process. And whenever possible, schedule your next home visit while you're at a home visit. All right, and I think the final point we have here is, be prepared to initiate contacts. Don't always wait for the family to initiate the contact. If we are communicating that we have this need for foster parents, let's make sure that the onus is on us to move things forward. Yes, we want the family to show some motivation as well, but we don't want the process to halt because they haven't made a phone call. All right, so if you have any questions about anything that we covered, now would be a great time to enter it into the chat. As we get ready to close out the session today, I want to summarize that what we talked about, everything that we talked about to this point, everything about your interactions with potential foster parents boils down to the three things that you see on the screen, and that's helping them believe that they're needed, helping them believe that they can do it, and helping them believe that your agency is going to support them. When you really buy into how much we need foster parents, our potential and our existing foster parents become a priority. Because we value them, we call them back and we do our best to move the process along. To help them believe they can rise to the challenge of being a foster parent, we have to realize that preparation for fostering doesn't end with GROW or other pre-service trainings, and it doesn't happen completely in a classroom. No one magically morphs into a great foster parent. It takes time, it takes experience and development and support, and it's our responsibility to provide many of the tools that they need to feel confident as they begin to foster. And last, we should help them believe that we'll support them throughout the licensing process to resolve barriers and to facilitate connections that are going to help them succeed. So this is all that I have for today. I do want to take time to acknowledge any questions that anyone may have.
Before anyone comes off mute, there are a couple questions that came up in the chat during the training, and Laura and I have been trying to answer them as they come up.
Okay.
But one of them I definitely wanted to touch on just to make sure everyone saw it, is about sibling groups, and if there are half siblings and maybe some siblings are placed with the other parent when children come into care. I just wanted to clarify that our relative definition does include the parent of and half sibling as a relative for placement purposes. So if that's a barrier you're coming into, that is in FOM 72203B if you need that information. But we definitely want to place kids with their siblings when we can, and that's why our relative definition does include that step parents or the parent of a half sibling. So I wanted to clarify that. I think that's it for questions that were in. in the chat. I don't know if anyone has any other question.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks, Jessica, to you and Laura for helping to provide those resources, answering those questions. I appreciate it. All right, so to everyone else, thank you for joining us today for the recruitment training